Hey there, Marvelous viewers! I'm someone who's grown up watching the iconic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons and playing the old-school arcade games. For years, I hoped for one thing: a major, serious, big-budget game from the franchise that doesn't shy away from the darkness hiding in the original comics. I wanted a game that wouldn't just be a nostalgia machine to remind me of the Saturday morning cartoons, but remind me of the gritty black and white comic series. So you can imagine my excitement when I saw the Summer Game Fest 2026 trailer for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. Well, the trailer makes one thing pretty clear. This one is definitely not aspiring to be a safe and family-friendly version of TMNT. The project that had gone quiet for a long time has now returned, with a new banner and a new developer in Paramount Games Studio and Platinum Games respectively. In this video, I'll tell you all about the things that have been confirmed about the game so far and what you can expect. The game is back from the dead. I think this comes as a relief for all the fans of the franchise who had given up hope with all the extended delays that troubled the development of The Last Ronin. For me, the revival of this much-anticipated game is the most important takeaway from the Summer Game Fest 2026 reveal. As you may know, the earlier version was connected to Black Forest Games and THQ Nordic, but the new trailer reveals that the resurfaced version is under Paramount Games Studio. Clearly, this is more than a random re-upload of an old teaser. Many are calling this one of Paramount Games Studio's major projects, and this is so comforting to know because this is not a small idea or a side-scrolling nostalgia piece. This game is based on one of the most successful, mature, and emotionally intense TMNT comic stories ever released, and I can't imagine this working without a proper backing and production confidence. Now, I probably need to hold my horses because the trailer has not given us a release date or even a full gameplay and narrative trailer, but as of now, the mere confirmation that the game is still alive is enough for me to celebrate. Platinum Games is the new developer. I have said earlier in this video that Platinum Games is now the new developer, and this is a major revelation that changes the entire conversation around this game. For those who are not familiar with the works of Platinum Games, let me tell you that they've mastered stylish and technical action games like The Wonderful 101, Bayonetta, and Vanquish, among others. They are known for their sharp and responsive combat sequences that are mechanically expressive. The Last Ronin is a story about one turtle carrying the weapons and memories of his fallen brothers, and on paper, that's the perfect material for an action game. I don't think a normal studio would be able to handle the pressure of the project, and I expect nothing short of a deep, flowing combat system. I'm glad that Paramount has brought in a studio known for kinetic action. Also, Platinum Games has worked on TMNT before with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants in Manhattan, but the game didn't become a franchise-defining hit that we hoped for. However, The Last Ronin is a different beast altogether. The darker narrative focused on a central warrior might just be the redeeming factor for the developers. The trailer confirms a darker TMNT than most games. I love how the teaser trailer of The Last Ronin doesn't even try to be subtle. Whatever little we get to see points to a dark and gritty environment, which is fitting of the narrative, and I'm fascinated by the presentation in this brief footage. Everything in the video, from the damaged city imagery, graffiti-covered streets, and a grim version of New York, makes it evident that this is not the cartoonish sewer world of the 1987 series. What I like most about the trailer is the attempt to stay true to the comic. Also, it's worth noting that the trailer uses the familiar TMNT identity while draining away the comfort. So much so that even the classic theme energy is transformed into something heavier. This is probably the darkest TMNT game ever attempted at this scale. The game is based on the Last Ronin comic, not just inspired by it. I find this comforting because the game is not an attempt to sound cool by using the title The Last Ronin. Paramount's own description confirms that the game is based on the actual comic book series, and it's not just inspired by it. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin comic was created from an old story idea by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the original creators of TMNT, with Tom Waltz helping bring it into its modern form. This comic series became a major event because it treated the Turtles like mythic, tragic heroes, rather than the charming Saturday morning icons. If the game follows the narrative, it means that some of the core story elements are locked in. For instance, we know that the central character is the last surviving turtle who's on a desperate mission for vengeance. The death of his family is the emotional engine of the story, and the Foot Clan and Shredder's legacy are central plot points. Also, New York is no longer the same city that the Turtles protected. Now, the real question is how closely it will follow the comic issue by issue. I guess it'll look to expand certain flashbacks and stretch the battles into full missions. This will allow the players to experience moments that the comic only shows briefly, and I'm thrilled by the possibility here. The weapons are a major gameplay clue. I would say that this is one of the most important details of the comic and one of the most obvious gameplay opportunities. The Last Ronin carries the weapons of his brothers, and this can turn out to be a design gift. In traditional Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, each turtle has a clear weapon identity. For instance, Leonardo has his katana, and Raphael has sai, while Donatello has a bow staff. For Michelangelo, it's the nunchaku, and the surviving turtle in The Last Ronin carries the family's entire arsenal. What this means symbolically is that he carries their memory. And as for the gameplay, it means the player gets access to multiple combat styles in one character. I think this is something that Platinum Games can really exploit by developing a unique fight setting. Leo's swords could be used for precision and clean damage. Raph's sai would be handy in close-range combat, and Donnie's staff could handle crowd control and reach. Michelangelo's nunchaku could be effective with speed and flow. My idea of the whole combat style is that the player begins with limited access, and maybe the memories and cutscenes unlock new techniques. Maybe the boss fights force the Last Ronin to focus on a specific style. However, nothing of this sort has been revealed yet, and I can't get ahead of myself and say that all this is confirmed. It's just that the game would be silly not to utilize the turtle carrying 4 legacies. The city of New York is a character in itself. The Last Ronin is inseparable from New York, and there are no two ways about it. This is why I feel like the trailer's city imagery is very significant. This isn't just a generic dystopian future, but a ruined version of the Turtles' home. So here, you won't just see a city as a setting, but more of a vibrant battlefield that has a character of its own. We all know how TMNT has always been tied to New York's rooftops, alleys, sewers, streets, and hidden corners, and the entire lore of the Turtles is specific to New York as part of their identity. Here, you will see that home has been corrupted as the Foot Clan controls the city and turns it into a hostile region. However, from the developer's perspective, I see this as a goldmine because they can use stealth sections, combat arenas, enemy compounds, and much more for an environmental storytelling. This makes me confident that the trailer's graffiti, darkness, and broken urban mood are not merely aesthetic choices, but the premise of a city that is waiting for one final act of resistance. Man, I'm getting excited about the gameplay even as I talk about this out loud. This is not a 4-player co-op TMNT game. I think this is something that the casual fans could easily miss. You see, most TMNT games are built around the fantasy of controlling the 4 brothers together. So the quick video game pitch is all about 4 turtles, 4 players, different weapons, and shared chaos. But The Last Ronin is built on the opposite idea. There's only one turtle left, and this means that the game is almost certainly not designed around the traditional 4-player TMNT structure. Here, the emotional design is loneliness, and the story depends on the absence of the familiar faces. However, this also doesn't mean that the other brothers will be entirely absent from the game. In fact, I expect them to appear just as they did in the comic, through flashbacks and memories that keep them present. I'd love it if the game has a couple of playable flashbacks featuring them, but nevertheless, the main point here is that the game is all about one brother carrying the cost of everyone else's death, and this certainly wouldn't be the typical 4-player co-op fun. The last surviving turtle is the emotional hook. If you go by the official description, it says that the game follows the last surviving Ninja Turtle on a desperate mission for vengeance. I would say this describes the entire soul of the project. For those who haven't read the comic already, the identity of the Last Ronin was originally treated as a mystery. Eventually, the story reveals that the surviving turtle is actually Michelangelo. This hits hard because we all know Michelangelo to be the heart of the team and the comic relief. The story turns him into a haunted lone warrior fighting a lone battle, and it's heartbreaking. This works well for the game narrative as well, because as a player, you'll feel the trauma that the protagonist endures and become a part of his journey. It would be disappointing if the makers don't cash in on this. The trailer is far from a gameplay reveal. I guess one of the easiest mistakes to make is to treat the Summer Game Fest trailer as a gameplay showcase, because it isn't. It gives us the studio, the tone, the world, and the project's revived status, but you can't read any further into it. The trailer does not offer anything on the combat systems, mission structure, enemy types, traversal mechanics, boss designs, or even the release timing. And that's fair, because the job of this trailer was to reintroduce the game and tell the fans that The Last Ronin still exists. I'm eagerly waiting for the real gameplay blowout, so you need to be careful about the tall claims floating around online. Back in 2023, the pitch for the game compared it to a modern God of War as a single-player action RPG, and I wouldn't be surprised if the new developers stick around with that theme. The Roninverse is expanding around the game. Another detail that you need to be aware of here is that the game is arriving at a time when The Last Ronin is no longer just one comic. The original story has grown into what fans now call the Roninverse. There was The Lost Years, and then The Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution, and Paramount's official page is also prompting an early look at The Last Ronin Training Day. This is crucial for the game because it's not just adapting a dead-end story. If you think about it, this creates two possibilities. Firstly, the game could stick close to the original Last Ronin storyline and treat the expanded comics as background flavor. This would be the cleaner approach for newer players because it wouldn't be like they have to read multiple books to understand the game. The second possibility is that the game could pull elements from the wider Roninverse or even expand on the same. This will bring innovation and new elements that even the readers of the comics are not familiar with. Well, at least we know that Paramount is treating Roninverse as a broader world and not just a one-and-done adaptation. There is still no release date, and that is significant. I would have loved to see an official release date for this, but the trailer doesn't give us one. If I have to read into the absence of a release date, I'll say that it's safe to assume there's some kind of delay in the release. If the game had been close, surely we would have gotten at least a release year. I have a feeling that the game is still stuck deep in development, and if the move to Platinum Games suggests a meaningful creative reboot, then it will rightly take its sweet time. I don't see this as bad news because for a game of this magnitude, rushing it would be the worst mistake. It has way too many things to get right, from combat, tone, story, to the animation, emotional pacing, and boss encounters. I'd rather have it delayed than have it disappoint the fans. As of now, the confirmation that we have is that the game is happening, and it's an action-adventure based on the comic. Too many times have I seen hype ruin expectations, and I don't want this to happen to one of my favorite TMNT titles. If all goes well, this might just go on to be one of the best games in the franchise, and that's a promising prospect for all the fans. As of now, let's just anticipate a delayed release, because the best that can happen is that we'll be happy to be proven wrong. I've said before how I'm happy just to see the project back on track, and I don't mind waiting a couple of years if it means that we finally get to experience a dark and gritty TMNT game with one of the best stories. Let me know in the comments below about your thoughts on the teaser trailer, and also share your expectations about the game. If you appreciate the efforts to bring you this content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more such videos.